My boyfriend called me in a panic. Did you wash my leather jacket? Before the story begins, the narrator's voice should hold a soft tension, as if whispering a warning to the listener. If you're hearing this, consider subscribing now, because what happened that night changed everything I thought I knew about love, fear, and the person I was becoming. And trust me, you won't want to miss what came after. I never imagined that a single phone call could split my life cleanly into a before and an after. Before that night, I believed I understood the person I loved. I believed I understood myself. I believed that fear had a predictable shape, that panic was something rational people could reason with, and that love required softness, not storms. And yet, the moment my phone buzzed in the darkness beside my bed, everything I believed about calmness, composure, and the foundation of my relationship with Alex fractured all at once. I remember waking abruptly, the weight of sleep still pressing gently on my eyelids, the faint glow of the digital clock telling me that it was far too late for anything normal to happen. It was 11 p.m., a time when silence should belong to the world, when worries should have curled away into dreams. But the second I pressed my phone to my ear, I felt that silence shatter. His breath came through in frantic bursts, not the kind of anxious huff someone makes when running upstairs or searching under couch cushions. No, this was something rawer, something jagged, something uncontrolled. It was the kind of breath that told me panic had already wrapped itself around his lungs, squeezing tightly. And in that moment, as my mind struggled to pull itself from sleep, I felt the first prickling edge of dread. Not because of the question he asked, there was nothing inherently terrifying about a missing leather jacket, but because of the way his fear reached through the phone, pressed itself against me, and demanded I feel it with him. It was strange how quickly my own instincts shifted. 1 second, I was half asleep, mildly annoyed, and ready to tell him we could figure it out in the morning. The next, a cold intuition slid quietly through my chest, awakening all the protective parts of me. Something wasn't right. Something was wrong enough that even a leather jacket, the simplest, most mundane object, became a symbol of catastrophe in Alex's mind. I didn't fully understand why the jacket mattered, but I understood him. I understood panic. I understood the breaking rhythm of someone fighting for oxygen while their own thoughts drowned them. And I understood that his fear, whatever caused it, was real. It's strange the way love works. Often, it's not the chocolates or flowers or beautiful gestures that reveal its depth. Sometimes, it's the instinctive shift inside your body when someone you care about is suffering. The way everything else falls away. The way your heartbeat quickens in tune with theirs. The way you suddenly become capable of more strength than you ever believed you possessed. That night, I didn't yet know what Alex was planning. I didn't know the truth behind his panic. I didn't know that within an hour, my understanding of him would be ripped apart and pieced back together into something far more profound. All I knew was that his breath was breaking, and I could not let that happen alone. So I did what I always did when he began spiraling. I grounded my voice, tried to shape it into something steady, something safe, something firm enough that he could cling to it. But even as I did, his panic only sharpened. Crashing sounds echoed through the phone, his urgent muttering filling my ear like a rising storm. And as the seconds passed, fear for him began coiling tightly within me. It wasn't the fear that something was wrong with the jacket. It was the fear that something was wrong with him. By the time I threw off my blankets and began searching my closet, exhaustion had vanished entirely. My body hummed with alertness. My movements grew sharp, driven by instinct and worry. When he whispered that he was sorry, so quietly that I almost didn't hear it, I felt something inside my chest twist. Sorry. Such a simple word, yet so rarely spoken through panic unless something deeper is unraveling beneath the surface. And then he said it. He told me he was having a panic attack. Everything in me froze. My breath hitched. My fingers paused at the edge of a laundry basket. Panic attacks were not new to Alex, but they were rare. And when they hit like a blinding wave that stole every inch of sense from him. The last time he had one, we'd spent the evening in the ER, doctors monitoring his vitals as he sobbed into my shoulder, convinced he was dying. Hearing those words, those 4 syllables, sent something sharp through me. Fear, yes, but also certainty. I had to go to him, immediately. It took less than a minute for me to grab my keys and sprint to my car. The night outside was cold, but I barely felt it. My heart was racing faster than the engine as I tore down the quiet streets toward his house. I kept speaking to him, painting calm images, reminding him to breathe, anchoring him to the sound of my voice. But even through the phone, I could feel how close he was to the edge. And then the worst thing happened. My phone died. The screen went black. His breathing stopped being something I could hear. My own panic surged so violently that the world around me became a blur. That drive, those last 90 seconds, felt like a lifetime compressed into a breath. When I finally reached his home, I barely remembered turning off my engine. The key trembled in my fingers as I unlocked his door with the spare he'd given me months before. But when the door swung open, I froze. The panic I expected was gone. Instead, a soft glow filled the house. Candles flickered everywhere in warm pools of light. Rose petals curled across the floor in a careful, delicate trail. And there, in the center of that glowing path, stood Alex calm, composed, dressed in a suit, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. For a moment, reality refused to make sense. My brain still buzzed with fear, still waited for the chaos, still expected to find him collapsed, unable to breathe. But instead, I found serenity. A scene so romantic it seemed almost unreal. A vision that contradicted everything he'd said only minutes before. And then, I saw it. On the nearby chair, the leather jacket, the object of his terror. And as he stepped toward me, everything inside me twisted with confusion, disbelief, relief, and shock all tangled together. I didn't yet understand what he'd done, why he had chosen panic as a prelude to love, why he had created a storm simply to reveal a sunrise. But soon, very soon, I would understand everything, and the understanding would change the way I thought about fear forever. I couldn't breathe at first, not from panic, not from fear, not even from surprise. My body froze as Alex bent slightly, pulling something from the pocket of that leather jacket. My heart hammered, unsure whether to anticipate disaster or miracle. And then, in a single motion, he lowered himself onto one knee. Time slowed. My hands flew instinctively to my mouth. The panic, the chaos, the hours of anxiety, all collided with a sudden, overwhelming wave of emotion. I could barely hear my own breath over the rapid drum of my heartbeat. The world felt suspended, balanced precariously between reality and something out of a dream. Alex's words came, soft yet firm, every syllable precise, every intention clear. He told me, he revealed to me, the depth of everything he had felt. How my presence in his life had reshaped him. How the smallest gestures, the quiet moments, the unremarkable days, had all been infused with a kind of gravity that only I could inspire. And then he asked me the question I never expected. The one that transformed a moment of terror into a memory I would carry forever. I nodded before fully understanding, tears streaming down my cheeks. The relief, the joy, the incredulity, and the deep, unshakable love all converged in that instant. I said yes. The words slipped out, carried by both astonishment and certainty. The chaos that had preceded, the false panic, the tension, it all dissolved into laughter, tears, and the simplest, purest form of love. The leather jacket, once a symbol of dread, a vessel for panic, now rested innocuously on a chair, a silent witness to the unspoken pact we had forged that night. It had led us here, had created the scenario in which we could confront fear, test our limits, and emerge victorious, bound closer together. I realized for the first time how intimately fear and love could intertwine, how one could catalyze the other, and how the most ordinary objects could carry extraordinary significance. We stood together, finally. The room smelled faintly of candle wax and roses, yet the air itself seemed charged with something indescribable. We held each other in that quiet, luminous moment, letting everything else, the world outside, the past fears, the minor disasters, fade away into insignificance. Every pulse of my heart synchronized with his, every breath a shared proof that panic, when faced together, could transform into something beautiful, unforgettable, and irrevocable. After the initial shock faded, I sank into the sofa, still holding Alex's hands. The room, dimly lit by flickering candlelight, felt surreal. Every detail, the rose petals, the scattered candles, the soft hum of the heater anchored me in this strange, magical reality. My mind, however, raced. I kept thinking about the moments leading up to this. The frantic phone call, the crashing sounds, his panic. I had been terrified that something terrible had happened, and yet here he was, safe, calm, smiling, the embodiment of all the love I had been too tired or too skeptical to admit fully until this night. And somehow, a leather jacket, of all things, had been the catalyst. I took a deep breath and finally asked, my voice trembling, "Alex, was this all for me?" He smiled softly, the kind of smile that makes your chest ache with warmth. "Every second," he said, "I wanted you to feel everything I feel. I wanted you to know that even when panic strikes, even when life throws its chaos, you're the one I trust, the one I need. I couldn't imagine doing this with anyone else." My tears streamed freely now. Every worry, every minor frustration, every tiny moment of doubt felt insignificant. In their place was the overwhelming sense of certainty, I had never, in my life, felt so understood, so seen. I laughed lightly, a sound mingling disbelief and joy. All this, over a leather jacket? I whispered. He tilted his head, a teasing glint in his eyes. Not the jacket, Jules. You. The jacket just led me to you. I shook my head, unable to stop smiling. It was absurd and perfect at the same time. I had gone from panic to relief to complete awe in a matter of minutes. The absurdity of being nearly paralyzed by anxiety, only to discover this surreal romantic tableau, made the moment all the more memorable. We spent the next hour sitting together, talking in soft whispers. Every word was meaningful, deliberate. I realized that all the times I had worried about whether I could trust someone, whether someone truly understood me, had led me here, to this exact point in time, where fear had been transformed into trust and anxiety into joy. Alex, noticing my gaze, said, I've been planning this for weeks, the jacket, the candles, the roses. I wanted to make you feel like you were stepping into the moment you deserved, not just the moment you expected. I felt my heart swell. The gesture was elaborate, yes, but it wasn't empty. Every detail, every nuance spoke of deep consideration, of attention to what I truly valued. I realized that love, the kind that lasts, often manifests in the smallest things, and sometimes in the most theatrical ways. When I finally stood to leave that night, my ring sparkling in the candlelight, I felt a newfound confidence, a sense of certainty I had never experienced before. I looked back at Alex, smiling as he traced my hand with his thumb, and thought, this is it. This is love. This is trust. This is home. As I drove home later that night, the world outside my car felt surreal. Streetlights streaked past like ribbons of gold, and every shadow seemed to echo the events of the evening. I kept replaying the proposal in my mind, the panic attack, the unexpected beauty of it all. Even the leather jacket, absurd in its importance, had been perfect. I remembered the first time I had noticed Alex wearing it. He had been leaning over his Harley, checking something under the hood, wind tousling his hair, the leather jacket fitting him like it had been made for him. That had been the moment I realized my heart had shifted. I had fallen for him, almost without warning. And now, that same jacket had brought him back into my life in the most dramatic, terrifying, and beautiful way possible. As I parked outside my apartment, I took a deep breath. My hands were still shaking from adrenaline, from emotion, from relief. I realized something profound. Panic and love were intertwined. The fear I had felt on the phone, the rising anxiety, the feeling of helplessness, it had made the joy of seeing him all the more intense. I walked inside and collapsed onto my couch, still clutching the ring box, still trembling. I thought about all the moments Alex and I had shared, the quiet evenings binge-watching shows, the laughter over silly jokes, the nights lying awake talking about our dreams and fears. Every ordinary moment had now transformed into something extraordinary, tied forever to this night. I allowed myself a long, quiet moment to cry, to laugh, to absorb it all. Love, I realized, isn't always predictable or calm. Sometimes it's chaotic, it's messy, it's a panic call at 11 p.m., and it's also the most beautiful, intentional gesture you'll ever receive. Then I remembered all the tiny details Alex had thought of, the exact placement of the candles, the scattering of rose petals, the careful lighting, the way he had chosen my favorite route through the room to create suspense. I smiled through my tears. Every little moment of panic he caused had been intentional, a build-up to a memory I would carry forever. I leaned back, closing my eyes, and let myself imagine the future. Our wedding, the life we would build together, the quiet mornings, the chaotic adventures, the small surprises, the laughter, the panic, the love. And in that moment, I knew, without a shadow of doubt, that whatever challenges came next, we would face them together, with courage, humor, and the same devotion that had brought us here. The leather jacket, once a symbol of minor panic, now stood as a testament to the journey of our love. From that day forward, every time I saw it, I wouldn't just see a piece of clothing. I would see Alex, the man who had transformed fear into joy, anxiety into a declaration of love, and a simple object into a symbol of his devotion. The morning after, I woke with the ring still warm on my finger, the metal imprint a soft reminder of last night. Sunlight spilled through the blinds, highlighting tiny particles of dust floating lazily in the air. Every ray seemed to spotlight the reality of what had happened. Alex had proposed, and I had said yes. My heart still raced, thinking about the panic, the chaos, and how every heartbeat had led me to this certainty. I recalled the countless small moments that had built our relationship, the quiet nights on the couch, the Saturday mornings sipping coffee together, laughing over dumb TV shows. Each memory now held an extra layer of meaning because it had led to last night. I could see now that love wasn't just the grand gestures, it was the accumulation of patience, understanding, and trust, strengthened over time. As I made breakfast, I replayed our earliest interactions. I remembered when I had first noticed him at the motorcycle repair shop, leather jacket gleaming under the sun. He had been bent over the engine, a cloud of grease dust on his jeans, and yet, somehow, everything about him seemed effortless. That was when I felt the flutter, a small, almost imperceptible recognition that he would matter more than anyone else ever had. Our first dates were casual, simple, yet unforgettable. Coffee at a quiet cafe, walks through the city streets, holding hands while our fingers intertwined so naturally it felt preordained. And now, every memory carried the weight of last night, of the panic, the rose petals, the ring. It had transformed the mundane into sacred. I sat by the window, gazing out at the morning bustle, thinking of Alex. How could one man turn panic into such beauty? How could a leather jacket, an ordinary object, become the catalyst for one of the most profound moments of my life? Love, I realized, wasn't always logical. It wasn't neat or predictable. Sometimes it arrived in bursts of chaos, in panic-filled phone calls, in moments that demanded courage and composure. My mind wandered to our future. Weddings, shared apartments, future pets, and even the simple act of grocery shopping together. It all felt imbued with a new significance. Every ordinary interaction was now a potential memory, a story to tell one day to our children or grandchildren. Love had given ordinary moments a sacred quality. I reflected on my panic during the call. How odd it felt that fear had led to clarity. Had I stayed asleep, had I ignored his call, I would have missed the transformative experience of seeing him, seeing his intent, and feeling the depth of his care. Sometimes it seemed life used anxiety as a teacher, showing us what truly mattered. I thought about the little things Alex had done to orchestrate the night, the candles, the petals, the careful placement of the jacket. It wasn't just a proposal. It was a demonstration of attentiveness, a declaration that he understood me completely, down to the smallest details. That understanding, I realized, was what made him not just my partner, but my companion for life. The leather jacket, once a trivial object, had now become symbolic. It represented the thread connecting all moments of our relationship, tangible proof that love could manifest in unexpected ways. I smiled, imagining us years from now, retelling the story to friends or children, how a panic call led to the most meaningful moment of our lives. Even the panic, once a source of fear, had become a memory I cherished. I would remember the racing heartbeat, the shaking hands, the uncertainty, and yet, how it had culminated in joy. Fear and love intertwined, creating a narrative more beautiful than any planned moment could achieve. As the day went on, I shared texts with my closest friends, careful to capture the essence without spoiling the magic. They responded with excitement, teasing, and awe. But I knew that no one could fully understand what it felt like from the inside, what it felt like to ride the wave of panic into the calm of certainty, to see love manifest in a simple leather jacket, and to recognize the depth of care in someone who truly knows you. That afternoon, I couldn't stop thinking about Alex and the proposal. Every detail replayed in my mind, the way he had waited, calm yet nervous under the candlelight, the rose petals scattered across the floor like a trail leading to our future. The leather jacket, resting nearby, now seemed less like a piece of clothing and more like a symbol of the moment that had changed everything. I walked around our apartment, touching objects that suddenly felt infused with meaning. The small bookshelf he had assembled last weekend now seemed monumental, a metaphor for how he had built his way into my life piece by piece. Every photograph on the wall, every coffee mug, every little knick-knack told the story of our years together. I called my best friend, whispering with excitement, "You won't believe what happened last night." Her shrill gasp of delight on the other end made me smile. We spent hours recounting every detail, laughing, squealing, and crying together over the phone. Even she, who had been in on the early stages of our relationship, hadn't guessed the extent of his plan. Later, as the sun began to set, I sat down to write in my journal, a habit I had kept since college. But today, the pages seemed inadequate. How could words truly capture the magnitude of what had happened? How could ink ever hold the way my heart felt, full, racing, terrified, and yet completely at peace all at once? I wrote anyway, knowing that someday, looking back, these words would help me remember the gravity of that night. I reflected on how Alex had handled my panic. That moment on the phone, when he asked me to breathe, when he stayed calm and guided me through my own fear, revealed so much about him. Love, I realized, was not only the grand gestures, it was also the steadying presence during chaos, the reassurance in the middle of a storm. He had shown me both in one perfect night. Dinner that evening was quiet. We cooked together, chopping vegetables and stirring sauces in companionable silence. But every glance between us carried an unspoken understanding, a shared memory of the previous night's intensity and joy. Even mundane acts, cutting a carrot, pouring a glass of water, felt elevated. Life suddenly seemed brighter, every sense sharper, every heartbeat more aware. As we ate, Alex reached across the table and took my hand. "I know last night was intense," he said softly, "but I wanted you to feel it. I wanted you to know how much you mean to me, even in moments that don't make sense." I squeezed his hand, heart swelling. "You succeeded," I whispered. "It's unforgettable." Later, we sat on the couch, curled under a blanket. I leaned my head on his chest, listening to the rhythmic beat of his heart. Each pulse seemed to echo the words he had spoken. "You are my thrill." And in that moment, I realized that love was not about grandiose declarations alone. It was about trust, intimacy, and understanding the other person's rhythms, fears, and joys. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the bedroom, painting the room in golden tones. I awoke to the faint sound of Alex making coffee. The smell of fresh grounds and sugar-filled cream greeted me like a warm hug. I stretched and rolled over, catching sight of the leather jacket still folded neatly on the chair. It wasn't just a jacket anymore. It was the first tangible symbol of our new chapter. Alex appeared at the bedroom doorway with 2 steaming mugs. "Morning, my thrill," he said with that teasing grin that always made my stomach flutter. "Morning," I replied, trying to sound casual, though my heart was still racing from last night. He handed me a mug, and I inhaled deeply. "You know," he began, "we should probably start thinking about the wedding." I choked on my coffee. "What, already?" "Of course," he said, sitting beside me. "We have 6 months, plenty of time to plan something unforgettable." And so began the whirlwind of wedding planning, which somehow felt more like exploring a treasure chest of memories than organizing an event. Every decision seemed imbued with meaning. The dress, the venue, even the flowers. It wasn't about perfection anymore. It was about embedding our story into every detail. We chose a small, intimate venue overlooking the city skyline, where the first rays of sunlight would illuminate the ceremony. It felt perfect, like the city itself was celebrating with us. Alex insisted on including a vintage motorcycle display, a nod to the leather jacket moment that had brought us together in more ways than one. I spent hours sketching ideas for decorations, color palettes, and table arrangements. Alex helped, though mostly by offering sarcastic but loving commentary. "Do you really think lavender goes with sage green? Or, are you sure the candle holders won't burn down the hall?" Every little disagreement ended with laughter. Every decision made us closer. Planning the wedding wasn't just about the event. It was about solidifying the bond we had built over years, about claiming our shared life in front of everyone we loved. Between planning sessions, we often found quiet moments together. Sometimes it was sitting on the balcony, sharing a cup of tea and watching the sunset. Other times, it was late at night, curled on the couch, binge-watching shows while planning how the wedding band would play our first dance. One evening, as the city lights twinkled below us, I asked, "Do you remember the first time we met?" Alex laughed softly. "You mean the Harley incident?" I rolled my eyes, smiling. "Yes, the leather jacket that started everything." He leaned closer. I remember thinking, she's the one. And now, look at us. It all started with a jacket and a little panic. I snuggled closer to him, my heart full. It's crazy to think about how everything led to this moment. Every small detail, every decision, every panic attack. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Every moment brought us here. And now, we get to start the rest of our lives together. We invited our closest friends and family to be part of the journey. Alex's parents were thrilled, helping with seating arrangements and menu selections. My own family was eager to contribute, offering advice on music, flowers, and even crafting a few handmade decorations. Our friends, meanwhile, added their own touch of chaos and fun. Julia, my best friend since college, was our unofficial wedding planner, ensuring that every detail reflected our personalities and shared history. She insisted on including small nods to our early adventures, like the coffee mugs from our first date, and the exact playlist we had played during the first road trip. It was during these moments that I realized love wasn't just about the 2 of us. It was about the entire community of people who had supported, shaped, and cheered for us along the way. As the wedding day approached, excitement mingled with nerves. I spent hours trying on dresses, adjusting veils, and imagining walking down the aisle. Every night, Alex and I would sit together, imagining the ceremony, the laughter, the tears, and the countless memories we would make. One night, as we held hands in bed, he whispered, "I still can't believe you said yes." I laughed softly. It wasn't just about saying yes. It was about knowing that this is the life I want with you. Panic attacks, leather jackets, late-night phone calls, all of it. It led us here. Alex smiled, pressing his forehead to mine. And I promise, every single day from now on, I'll make it worth it. The morning of the proposal replayed in my mind like a movie I could never get tired of. The panic, the confusion, the chaos of Alex searching for that leather jacket. It had been terrifying and thrilling at the same time. Yet looking back, I realized that moment perfectly captured our relationship. Life with Alex wasn't predictable. It wasn't calm or orderly. It was alive, filled with small storms and bigger laughter, and most importantly, it was ours. After that night, we sank into months of bliss, each day feeling like a celebration. Every morning, the simple things, the smell of his coffee, the sound of his keys jingling, the way he smiled without saying a word, reminded me of why I had said yes. It wasn't about grand gestures. It was about the constancy of being seen, truly seen, and loved. Planning the wedding became a joyful whirlwind. We laughed endlessly while choosing flowers, debated over table settings, and spent entire nights listening to music for the first dance. The leather jacket, now safely hung in our closet, became a symbol of that spontaneity and adventure that defined us. We joked that it would be in our wedding photos, perhaps draped over a chair in the corner of the ceremony, silently witnessing the next chapter of our lives. The night before the wedding, we sat together on our balcony, holding hands, letting the city lights wash over us. "Can you believe it?" I asked quietly. Alex laughed softly, brushing hair from my face. "I can believe it because it's us. It always has been us. From that leather jacket to this exact moment, every twist and turn led to here." I rested my head against his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat. I know, and I wouldn't change a single moment. The wedding day. The morning of our wedding dawned clear and bright. The venue sparkled with sunlight, reflecting off the glass windows, the flowers we had chosen bursting with life and color. Every detail vintage motorcycles, soft jazz playing in the background, and even the small nods to our favorite coffee shop told the story of our journey. As I walked down the aisle, I could feel Alex's gaze on me, warm and steady. My heart raced, not from fear, but from a deep, unshakable certainty. This was the life I had chosen, the person I had trusted, and the future I had dreamed of. When he took my hands in his, all the years, all the moments, panic, laughter, late-night conversations, and spontaneous adventures flooded through me. "You are my thrill," I whispered. "And you're mine," he replied, eyes glistening. The vows we exchanged weren't perfect or rehearsed. They were raw, real, and filled with the authenticity of two people who had weathered storms together and emerged stronger. When Alex slid the ring onto my finger, it wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a promise of patience, joy, love, and countless small adventures, just like that fateful night with the leather jacket. Epilogue: years later, we would look back on that chaotic night and laugh. The panic, the leather jacket, the near heart-stopping panic attacks, they had all been small threads in the tapestry of our life together. Alex and I built a life full of shared dreams, quiet mornings, and passionate adventures. We traveled, adopted a golden retriever named Harley in honor of our first meeting, and filled our home with memories, photographs, and laughter. That single chaotic moment, an ordinary panic over a jacket, had revealed the extraordinary nature of our bond. Through it all, we learned that love isn't calm, and it isn't always neat. Love is messy, exhilarating, unpredictable. And sometimes, love comes dressed in leather and chaos, ready to sweep you off your feet when you least expect it. As I sit here now, telling this story, I hope it reminds you. The small, frantic, unexpected moments often carry the biggest meaning. Never underestimate the magic hidden in what seems like ordinary life. Before you get too comfortable, hit that subscribe button for TaleHub, join us, and never miss a story that will move you, thrill you, and make you feel alive. Thank you for listening. Your support means the world. Subscribe to TaleHub for more incredible stories, and share this one if it made your heart skip a beat. Stay inspired and keep chasing the moments that make life extraordinary.